Hi everyone, this is Alexandr Antsypov, and I have got more than 100 questions how to add validation into DEPRECATED application. In this video, I am going to show how it is easy and simple in DEPRECATED. Let's create new application, validation app. As you know, Ionic uses Angular framework which has its own validation, but DEPRECATED team improves this process, and now I am going to demonstrate how it works. For that we need import plugin, validation plugin, which already has one screen. Here we see some input fields and one button. Let's test how this application works. For that let's change routing and test. Application is ready, but as always I suggest you to remove the frame and test the application in mobile mode of Google Chrome browser. The first input component is an email, and we expect that our application will validate what we typed here and show error message in case if value is different than email. So let's type, for example, test, and we will not see any error message until we will leave this component. So let's put input focus into number input field. So we see error message incorrect email. So now if we would back to email, we will see corresponding error message for number input component. So let's do it. Here you see that the number is required. Now let's type the correct email address. So you see error message for email disappear. Now let's go to number and provide here some value. Okay, and let's type some value for the password, 2 symbols, and now let's go to the number. So you see that password should be more than 4 symbols. So let's came back here and provide some value. Okay, now we can press this icon to see the password, yeah, and can press it again. So I want to paint your attention on one more detail. It is a submit button. So now this button is active, but if validation fail, submit button will be disabled. So now let's for example remove value from the password, you see, and now let's type password by 1 symbol, and as soon as the length of the password will become 4, the button will be active. I hope that you got high level understanding how validation works, and now let's investigate how to add validation into your mobile application. So for that let's come back to DEPRECATED. As always you can do everything by analogy. So there is a validation screen and you can copy this component, you can copy SCSS class if it will be needed, and so on. But I want to add validation on absolutely new screen, so it will be screen 1, and let's change routing back to screen 1. First what you have to do is adding form component, and then we can add some input component into the form component. Let's add card, and let's add some input component here. User will type some text into input component, and then let's add text component where we will show error message in case if it is. As I already said, the most easiest way to do something by analogy. So let's go to validation screen and select email component. So here we see that this component uses special directive. Let's copy it and then go to screen 1 and add the same directive to our input component. The value of this directive is a variable which will contains error message. Let's copy it. Pay attention that you don't need to create this variable on variables tab. So this is temporary variable which should be defined only here. Let's go to screen 1 and provide this value for our new directive. Then we have to provide where this error message will be displayed. Let's copy it, go to screen 1 and provide this value as a text for text component, and also let's change the color to danger. Now it is time for specifying validation rule. So we can specify validation rule on the features and as a type. So let's first specify type as an email and press test. Okay, let's type some value. In order to see error message, our input component has to lose input focus, so let's click somewhere. Okay, now we see corresponding error message. If I would provide correct email address, error message disappears. Let's continue investigation, change type to text, and then specify min and max length values. So the min length will be 4 and max length will be 6. Let's test. I typed some value with 2 symbols, and now let's lose the focus. Okay, we got corresponding error message. Now let's try to input more symbols. Now I'm pressing keyboard button, but physically I cannot insert text with length more than 6 symbols. Now let's take a look how we can add validation for numbers. Let's change type to number, remove max and min length, and specify min and max values. So min will be 10 and max will be 100. Let's test. First value will be 2. Okay, there's message, and now let's provide 200. Yeah, and we got also corresponding error message. Okay, but theoretically we can act the same here as we did with length. So we can limit user and prohibit them to input more than max value. For that, it is needed to add additional directive, which is called strict mode. So let's just add it to the input and test. I'm able to specify 100, but when I continue to press numbers, nothing appears on the screen. And the last directive which I want to show you is used when the type of the input component is a password. So let's specify type as password. Let's change min and max. Also let's add icon. Let's specify slot as end and copy our last directive. Not this one, this one. Show password on click. Let's add it instead of strict mode. Let's test. Input some value, and as you already guessed, after clicking on eye icon, password will be shown and hide in case of clicking again. And last, what I want to show you, how to make some button enable or disable depends on validation status. So let's add button. And again go to validation screen. If we would select submit button, we can see the value of disabled property. So let's copy it, go to screen 1, select our button and provide the same value here. Here we use validation form variable. So let's open validation screen, select form 1, and here we see that validation form is a value of form ID property. So let's go to screen 1 and provide the same value for our form. And also let's provide some validation. For example, it can be min length. And also let's provide required properties that are for this input component. Now we can test. Okay, now we see that button is disabled, and now let's type some value. Okay, now you see that button became active. That is all what I wanted to show in this video. Thanks for watching.